Good morning. Gonna make some Pandesal. It's a Filipino sweet roll. Delicious. Started out with some active dry yeast. I keep this in the freezer, about a pound of it. Kept it split it into 2 mason jars. That one's almost gone. Some sugar, salt, basically the ingredients, okay? 2 teaspoons of yeast, 3/4 of a cup whole milk, 3/8 of a cup of half and half, 2 cups bread flour, 1.5 cups all-purpose flour, a heavy teaspoon of salt, so a little bit, rounded teaspoon is good to say, 2¼ tablespoons of butter, a quarter cup of sugar, and 2 eggs. And just wanted to at least show you, I heated up the cream, or the half and half, and the milk for 45 seconds just to get it so that the chill was off of it. It's not hot, it's not cold, it's just tepid. And put the yeast in with a little bit of sugar, a teaspoon of sugar, just to get it going. Even though it's active dry yeast, it works phenomenally if you get it a little bit of a head start. So I'm gonna go ahead and gather my flours, my salt, my sugar, and I'll be back. So far I've got 2 cups of bread flour. I used Caputo 00 because I have that, but any kind of bread flour would work fine. I'm gonna use 1.5 cups of the all-purpose flour. I've got the sugar, the salt, the yeast is fermented in the milk. The butter, I put that in the microwave for like 25 seconds just to get it a little bit soft, and I beat 2 eggs. So I'm gonna go ahead and combine the flours with the sugar and the salt and mix that up together while it's dry, and then dump the wet ingredients in, and we're gonna go from there. But right now I'm just gonna mix the dry ingredients, which is the bread flour with 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour with some sugar and some salt. And then I'm gonna stir it. So I whisked my dry ingredients together. Look at all those bubbles on the yeast, the butter, the eggs. I'm going to create a little pocket here in the center and dump in the eggs. I'm going to use a little spatula to get out all of the eggs. Throw in the butter. Going to do the same thing. Going to use a spatula. That doesn't want to go in so well. But I'm going to go ahead and scrape out the remainder of the egg. Going to put the butter in, and then I'm going to throw in the yeast. And I'm going to use this little spatula to get all the ingredients out. My countertop's been washed and dried. I'm going to use this spatula to just kind of get this stuff preliminary mixed just a little bit, just so it's not a big mess when I spill it onto the counter. I'm not really trying to mix it too well, just trying to get it kind of together. This is the easiest rolls or kneading that I've ever done. It's almost like self-kneading because the moisture, the ingredients are pretty moist, and it's easy to mix. So that's it. That's all I'm doing there. Now I'm going to scrape out everything that I can out of the bowl with the spatula. So that's it there. Good enough. Okay. And then I just take a butter knife and scrape off the spatula. Beautiful. Good enough. As far as the mixing goes, not a big deal. It's pretty fast. It's a nice moist. It's a little sticky, but that's okay. It'll work out. Just takes a couple minutes. It's not like you're here for 15 minutes doing the kneading. Just turn it into itself. Get it so that the dry stuff gets in with the wet stuff. Work it for a minute here. I mean, this is the entire process that I'm showing you here. There's not anything getting cut out. This is how easy this stuff is to mix together. It just goes beautiful. And then you can take it off your hands. If you think it's a little bit wet, you can always add just a little bit more flour, but let's just work it for a minute and see how it goes. I say if you can get it off your hands and get it in the dish to rise, it's good enough. Okay, it's no need to make it too dry, because you want these, the important thing is the second rise. You want that to be nice and long, or else your rolls are going to come out kind of dense and hard instead of light and fluffy. But look at this. I mean, this stuff is beautiful. It's like it took no time at all to get everything blended together, and it's so stretchy and elastic. So this makes it very nice. Much easier than, look at that, just roll your dough around a little bit on your clean counter, suck up anything that's left. As I mentioned, look at my hands, it's almost clean right now. So all that wet stuff kind of has fallen off my hands. There's really no need for anything extra. The original recipe was just for whole milk, but I thought threw in some half and half because I think it just like adds to the beautiful flavor. And gosh, I mean, these are so simple. Look at that, that's it. You don't have to do any more work than this. Simple. Then I'm going to get a clean dish. I'm going to spray it with a little bit of olive oil or any kind of a spray to keep it from sticking. Go ahead and set that in there. Cover it with plastic and let it rise, you know, an hour or whatever. Then we'll divide it. So I covered the dough ball with some saran wrap, plastic wrap, whatever you want to call it, and gonna let it sit, and we'll check it out in a little while. It's 9 o'clock. Okay, so it's 10:40. It's about an hour and 40 minutes. You can see that the loaf has risen up considerably. The dough ball's risen. The most important thing about these rolls is the second rise, not the first rise. But I've got a pan that's ready to go because I'm going to make some dough balls, and it's greased. And I've got a cutting board sitting here that I'm going to use to cut these and divide them into equal pieces. So let me set up the phone, and I'm going to do that. Okay. So, take off the plastic wrap. I'm going to take this here and just dump it out. And then the goal is you just push it down and try to get it kind of rectangular. Let me take the shirt off. You want to get this kind of rectangular. I guess I should have put a little flour down first. It's a good idea. Let me do that. Just put a little flour on here so it doesn't stick. I find the bigger that you squash it and the more rectangular that you can make it, the easier it is to divide it. We're going to make this into 24 balls. So it's kind of hard to do that unless you have some kind of an idea or system, because you kind of want your balls to be the same size. And if you start with one big blob, it's harder to divide than if you spread it out a little bit. So anyway, I'm just going to kind of square it up or make it kind of into a rectangle. Best I can, squash it down a couple more times. The trick is these rounded corners, they tend to be smaller pieces, and it's kind of hard. And if it's all like this, it's hard to get your pieces even. So, and it's much easier, the better you cut them the same size, the better it comes out. So let me, I mean, that's, I don't know if you can see that, but that's the way it works. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to cut it in thirds this way, just by eyeing it. Then I'm going to cut it in half this way. And then I'm going to cut these into half again. And then try to do those into thirds. So what do I have here? I have 6, 12, 18. Well, I'm going to have too many rolls here, but that's all right. We're going to do it this way anyway. You'll get the idea. I made these too small, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. And you just pick them up and you roll them. The idea is you want to try to have them as pretty much the same size as possible. So we're just going to have more smaller rolls and less bigger rolls. I've actually used this recipe to make hamburger rolls and different kinds of rolls. So if you wanted to make a bigger rolls, you just squash them down and kind of get them bigger and flatter and then let them rise up. However you do it, it works out. And actually the smaller rolls are not necessarily all that bad, because then people just eat more smaller ones rather than putting their fingers and taking bigger ones. And I've never noticed these to not get eaten, but you know, they go pretty fast. I made some of these yesterday and the whole tray got wiped out and there were none left. That's why I'm making them again today. Well, I'm going to pause the video while I make these rolls. Here, you see, I just take the piece and just kind of like roll it around in between the palms of my hands until they get to a ball. Then you just put them down. Okay, so the rolls are placed in the pan. I ended up with 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 rolls. Okay, I was gonna go for 24, and obviously I made a miscalculation when I did the cutting, but it doesn't matter because basically this pan is gonna fill up with bread dough, and it doesn't really, what difference does it make if you have 24, you have 36 or 35 or whatever. But so I'm gonna cover these with saran wrap and place them and let them rest and rise again, probably for who knows, doesn't matter. You're gonna see though, they're gonna puff up nice, and then I'll put some breadcrumbs on before they get baked later. Look at how these rolls have risen up nice and fluffy. I'm gonna put some breadcrumbs on them. The original recipe I saw had stated that you put the breadcrumbs on like on each roll as you're making them and rolling them, but I did that and it was a lot of work. And I find if you just sprinkle them on as you're just before they go in the oven, that's perfect. We're going to bake these for 20 minutes at 350. Look at those rolls. It's too bad that you can't smell through the video.